Hear the whispers from within, balance to restore, ailings to relieve. Feel the nature keeping us, nature healing us, flowers, leaves, and roots within. Hear the mind calming you, soothing you, love and kindness inside out. Let the herbs from middle world heal. Welcome wellness, welcome wellness. It's revealed herbs, middle world herbs.
Hello and welcome to the Middle World Herbs Natural Wellbeing Series, where we talk about restoring and maintaining your health in safe and natural ways while incorporating both the physical and the emotional sides of healing. We go live twice a week on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and every single week we talk about a different aspect of health. In today's episode, we are focusing on berberine, which is a bioactive compound found in several plants, including barberries, Oregon grape, and golden seal. And we're going to cover some really fascinating topics of history of the medicinal use of berberine and its amazing properties for supporting heart and cardiovascular health, as well as blood sugar regulation and cholesterol. So we will discuss a lot of the recent research about this herb and just explain where the excitement about it comes from. And I'm going to introduce you to two wonderful berberine supplements to keep you living your life to the fullest, so stay tuned for that. My name is Deanna. It's so great to be here as your host today, and I'm joined with our special guest, Dr. Jacquie Leone. She's a naturopathic medical doctor, board-certified holistic nutritionist, and a psychology enthusiast. So welcome, Dr. Jacquie. Always great to have you on. And today's topic is Secrets of Barberry. So briefly introduce yourself and what got you on your path towards naturopathic medicine.
Hello. Thank you for having me. We were just talking before we started that I went on a deep dive today in research. I'm very familiar with berberine. I use it often in practice, but new research is always emerging. And so I wanted to check out what the newest study said, and wow, was my mind blown away. And it's stuff like that that really got me into naturopathic medicine. The fact that science can help dictate and or explain our biochemistry in a way where we can, I call it biohack the system. We can hack our own biology and get it to do things that it otherwise may not do if we didn't have all this information and all of these cool natural substances to help. And I chose specifically naturopathic medicine because I had just had a long stint of both friends and family members, myself included, trying pharmaceuticals to treat an issue. And in most cases, it actually ended up creating more side effects or making symptoms worse. And so I was determined to find another way to use science to my advantage outside of pharmaceuticals. And naturopathic medicine is what I found. And in naturopathic medicine, a lot of our tenants are using nature to heal. Nature cure, like hot and cold water, earthing outside, quality sleep, removing of electronics, lifestyle things, but most importantly is using food and nutrition as medicine. And plants and animals all around us have these really magical superpowers that, interestingly enough, I don't know if it's a coincidence, I don't think it is, but like a lock and key, they directly address our biology and can help heal us. And I think that that's really cool. So anyhow, that is a little bit about what got me into naturopathic medicine as it applies to today. And I'm super excited to talk about berberine and what I found out in my research.
Yes, I know you gave me like a sneak peek, and now I'm like super jazzed on berberine too. I already popped my 2 supplements. I'm ready for my 90-day challenge, and we're going to get into all that details. All right, so what is berberine? Let's start with the basics, and where is it found in nature?
Awesome question. Basics are a great place to start. So like I was saying before, the lock and key mechanism of plants having special ingredients that we need. Berberine is known as what's called an alkaloid. It's one of the ingredients in plants, just like, some plants have vitamins, some have minerals, some have fiber. Other plants have these things called phytochemicals or plant chemicals, and alkaloids is a class of that. And then under that umbrella of alkaloid is berberine. So it's this really rich yellow colored alkaloid found in plants and in nature. So alkaloids give plants certain superpowers like For example, caffeine is an alkaloid in the coffee plant, and that gives us, energy, or at least perceived energy in the morning. The poppy plant, California poppy, has an alkaloid, codeine, which helps us as humans minimize pain. And so those are just additional examples to what berberine is. So berberine is a superpower of plants in the alkaloid class, and it does a lot of really, really cool stuff. I think the three biggest that have been studied in science are it's going to lower cholesterol, bad cholesterol specifically. So if you have high cholesterol, or you know someone who has high cholesterol, it will really help the liver process that bad cholesterol faster. Meaning, secondarily, it's going to help the cardiovascular system, because bad cholesterol is what adds to plaques and things like that in our arteries, atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, preventing the heart from working as efficiently. So when we can get rid of bad cholesterol, our heart and our cardiovascular system work better. And then the third thing that it really stands out for, which to me is probably, I saved the best for last, is it acts like insulin in the body to lower blood sugar. So it's actually been shown to be more effective than a very common medication used to treat diabetes known as metformin, which a lot of people are on. If you out there have diabetes, or you know someone who has diabetes, chances are they're probably taking metformin if they're not insulin dependent already. And berberine has been shown to be just as effective, if not more so, because there's no side effects. So that's really the trifecta for what makes berberine super, super effective. And it's found in the plant world. So the biggest one are going to be the barberry plant, like you mentioned, Oregon grape, which is a very common plant used medicinally very, very often by herbalists and naturopaths, and then golden seal. Golden seal, it's built right in the name, right? Golden. Because it's a golden color. But more commonly, you might know, the really bright yellow golden color of turmeric. Turmeric is very high in berberine, and that's not a coincidence. So the color reflects a lot of times the superpowers of the plant, or the special ingredients that are in the plant that help, pack its punch and give it its superpowers. And in this case, the golden yellow in turmeric is berberine, and that's what gives it all of its superpowers. Everything berberine does on top of anti-tumor growth. I mean, the sky's the limit. But like I said, those are really the three strongest front runners for what we've studied for berberine and what it does well for people. So I'm super excited to dive into more detail.
Ah, yeah, I didn't know that about turmeric. That's super cool. So this is that really bright yellow for anyone who hasn't seen it. That's what the capsules look like.
It's so cool looking. I love it.
So how long have people been using this? Like, have our ancestors been using it? What were they using it for, if they've been using it?
Oh, yeah. So berberine goes back more in, just ancient traditional, obviously North America. We don't have a lot of records outside of, coming over in the 1400s, 1500s. But previous to that, actually Asia, India, China, Japan, they have records going back thousands and thousands of years, when things like traditional Chinese medicine, herbal medicine, energy medicines, they started keeping very detailed records. And the first use of berberine was about 3,000 to 4,000 years ago in China, actually. And so our ancestors have been using it thousands and thousands of years. So if it ain't broke, you know what I mean? But there are over 500 plants that contain berberine in the world. So, it's a pretty common alkaloid. It's very, very powerful. Plants use it for themselves, to stave off, predators and infection and things like that. So it just goes to show, if it's going to do those things in the plant, it will do them with us. And our ancestors didn't have social media or TV to distract them. All they really had time to do was pay attention to nature. And they saw that certain plants didn't grow certain fungal infections, didn't grow certain bacteria, or certain predators didn't eat them. So what were they giving off, right? What did they contain that made them special? And they noted that berberine and things like turmeric, Oregon grape, and so on, so forth. So they started using it, trial and error, and here we are. Now modern science is actually utilizing it and considering turning it into a pharmaceutical, which is pretty powerful stuff.
Wow, that is. So what is science telling us about Berberine right now?
I'm so excited. Okay, so the reason this is exciting for me as a physician is because the biggest thing that comes in my door, honestly, it's a handful of things, but a lot of it has to do with comorbidities of being overweight and being obese, right? So we have cardiovascular disease, we have prediabetes and full-blown diabetes. We have what's called metabolic syndrome, which is kind of a syndrome is just a collection of symptoms that we can't really pinpoint a disease state to, like a pathology. So we call it a syndrome. PCOS, Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome in women. If you have difficulty getting pregnant and your hormones are off the charts, you might have insulin resistance or prediabetes. So these are just really, really common. Why can't I lose weight no matter how many calories I cut from my diet, and I'm working out so hard, and what's going on? A lot of it has to do with how insulin works in the body and how other hormones work in the body. So without getting too sciencey, there are a handful of lab measurements essentially that let me know the current health of you, right? If you were to be my patient. So number one is called fasting glucose. When you don't eat, where's your blood sugar at? If it's crazy high, that is a problem, a sign of potential pre-diabetes or diabetes, right? Then we have what's called hemoglobin A1C, or A1C for short. And that's the average measure of blood sugar over 3 to 4 months, 90 to 120 days, because that's the life of a red blood cell. So one is just the snapshot of that moment, and one is your average blood sugar, right? And then we want to look at cholesterol, good to bad, right? The ratio, triglycerides, all of those things. And the study was done very, very recently with Berberine specifically, where 500 milligrams were given 3 times a day. That's 1,500 milligrams over 13 weeks. And every 4 to 5 weeks, there were measures of all of the lab values that I just shared. Now, at the beginning, and I should say caveat, they compared berberine, a plant alkaloid, everyone, to metformin, which is a synthetic drug that's been utilized for decades and decades, as the way to control diabetes and to get these numbers back down to healthy. And my goodness, this plant alkaloid, in my opinion, the numbers don't lie, right? So there's a difference between, hey, I took a herb or a supplement and I feel great, and my numbers are kind of improving, I think, or my clothes are fitting better, like subjective feedback versus data-driven feedback. So just to let you know, the A1C, anything above like 5.7 is going to be in the diabetic range. And the average A1C starting out was 9 to 9.5, almost double what we would consider diabetes for this study. The metformin group went down to 7.72, and the berberine group went down to 7.38. So almost 0.5% more this natural plant did than this medication, which I think is pretty phenomenal. In addition, fasting glucose way down, started at, in the 120s in the metformin, well, in both groups, got down to about 95 in metformin, got down to 88 in the berberine group. And so these numbers might sound kind of nebulous to my non-science driven people, but please just know basically what this study showed and what the data showed is that this herb, it's not an herb, it is an alkaloid or a phytochemical from plants and herbs. But this chemical, this berberine, just beat the drug at every turn for every value in all of the people in that sample size. Now, not everybody got the berberine, of course, because science, it's double blind. So, you separate berberine, metformin. Nobody knows what they're taking. The scientists administering have no idea either. So we don't, we try to control for bias. And then everything was measured, and berberine just was the front runner all the way through. Not only that, but a positive side effect, which I think this will be studied and highlighted even more, is people lost on average 12 to 13% of their body weight without changing diet, lifestyle, exercise, or anything, simply because the berberine worked to resensitize insulin, lower blood sugar, and get rid of bad cholesterol more efficiently, which metformin doesn't really touch. The cholesterol thing, cardiovascular stuff, maybe a bit, but nowhere near what the berberine was able to accomplish. So my science nerd brain just went crazy about this study, and it's so promising. And more and more companies and more institutions, Harvard Health, Michigan State, Oregon State, all of these big institutions that focus heavily on nutrition are really starting to hone in on some of these phytochemicals, berberine being one of them. So science is really starting to turn their head and, hey, nature might be up to something here. We might really need to slow down our synthetic, drug production and take a look at what nature has to offer, study that more, and be able to utilize that as first line defense. Because on top of all of that, all those benefits between the drug and and berberine, the natural alkaloid, almost no side effects were reported with the berberine. And there were a lot of side effects with the metformin, liver toxicity, when people were taking it at certain doses, indigestion, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, all of that stuff. So it's safer, it's more effective, it's more affordable, and why the heck not? And so I'm so glad that science is finally catching up to what I have felt compelled to and drawn to for decades now, which is nature is medicine. So sorry about the tangent. I hope that helped answer the question.
Yeah.
Oh man, you can interrupt me when I go on my tangents. I just love science.
I want that is like such a crazy cool study, and I feel like everyone who knows anyone on metformin needs to share this live immediately, get them to know about that study. And then Eva just wrote that she took berberine for 3 months last year without changing her diet or exercise and lost 10 pounds. So like the 90-day study we were just talking about. So I'm starting it today, day one. I took my 2 supplements right now, Berberine HCl 40, and I'm gonna do it for 90 days consistently. We'll see if I drop any weight or if I just feel great. I'll let you guys know. I'll keep track without changing anything. So I'm so excited. Yeah, so and it's good to buy these on the live because you get 20% off. So I'll have to be making my little checkouts while I'm on the live. All right, so what are some key benefits to taking berberine? I know we just went through like a whole bunch, but what are some just key bullets on that?
We really did. So the way that it essentially works is it increases a certain enzyme that's responsible for metabolism. So it's going to increase the way our body uses nutrition. And so that's why people like Eva and potentially yourself in 90 days, are going to passively lose weight, because it's just making our thyroid and other parts of our body more efficient at using nutrition, right? It's going to upregulate that process by stimulating that enzyme, which is pretty rare to see in the drug world and in nature. So benefits of taking the supplement are going to be the passive weight loss, the resensitization of insulin to help reverse prediabetes, maybe even type 2 diabetes. If you have a family history of high cholesterol or your body not being able to process cholesterol, it's going to help with that. And then obviously the positive outcome of helping be more efficient with cholesterol or breaking it down is going to be avoiding and preventing heart disease, which is pretty cool. It also changes the viscosity of the blood. And so, people who have to take a baby aspirin every day, the reason is because it thins out the blood, which prevent clots, and clots are what cause like stroke and heart attack and stuff. So when we can keep the blood a nice viscosity, a nice smooth viscosity, it's going to go through those arteries a lot better and a lot more efficiently. And berberine has been shown, and berberine supplement, has been shown to do that as well. Be anti-platelet aggregating, or, helps the viscosity of blood. So, the list is just endless with the benefits of berberine across the board.
That's so cool. All right. Well, if you're just jumping on, I'm going to tell you about our supplements. And also, if you didn't hear about the study, one of the things berberine did in a study was people lost up to 12% of their body weight in 90 days without changing their diet at all or exercise. So if that's not enough to get you to get this, let me tell you a little more about these supplements. So we have the Berberine HCl 40, and then we have the Middle World Berberine with bitter melon and benavolene. And we're going to go into the difference between the two. I also want you guys to see the capsules. It's right here. It's got that beautiful, intensely rich yellow color. And this has 97% purity, confirmed by third-party testing, which is actually not often found in berberine supplements. It's also non-GMO and made here in the USA. And then berberine with bitter melon and vanilla has also that beautiful yellow color. And both are veggie capsules. You're getting 60 per bottle. And then the berberine HCl 40 is $19.49 right now. And the bitter melon one is $21.49. Plus you're getting an additional 20% off during this live. Just make sure you click the little banner to get that as well. All right, so those are the prices on them. All right, Dr. Jacquie, let's play a game of true or false. So if you guys are watching, type in the chat your answers. I always try to guess too. Our first one, turmeric and berberine are the same thing, true or false? Well, you were talking about this earlier, and I was listening very closely because I saw this question coming up. I'm going to say false. Berberine is part of turmeric, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah, great ear hats on. That's what it says, ear hats when you're listening. Yes, absolutely. So berberine is in turmeric, but they are not the same thing. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Oh, we had a real quick question with Gwen before we go to our next one. If you're already taking a blood thinner, even if it's natural like cayenne pepper, is there anything to be mindful of regarding berberine?
Yes. So if you're already taking any drugs or any herbs that do what berberine does already, it's going to do what's called potentiate and or add to the effects of. So let's say we're taking something that lowers blood pressure and then we add berberine, it's going to lower blood pressure more, which can make us what's called hypotensive instead of hypertension, which is known as high blood pressure. It'll make our blood pressure too low. So if we're taking capsicum or cayenne, capsicum is the active ingredient in cayenne to thin out blood and to, move blood. Taking berberine on top of that, you definitely want to talk to your doctor, get some blood tests first, make sure that it's safe. There's not a negative interaction, but again, it's just a potentiation where they make each other work a little bit more efficiently. So in that case, it could be too much of a good thing, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, good answer there. And then next question for our true or false. Metformin is made from berberine. True or false? Oh, false. Metformin's made in a lab, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So I will say that a vast majority of drugs are actually synthetic derivations of plants. So believe it or not, metformin is from French lilac. So they pulled out one ingredient from French lilac known as guanidine, I believe is how it's pronounced, or guanidine. Anyway, guanidine, as I pronounce it, is a single constituent. And then what they do is they try to look at the molecular makeup of that active ingredient, and then they try to replicate it synthetically. And that's how pharmaceuticals are born, essentially. Now, the only problem with that is when we look at a plant, right, like berberine is an alkaloid, well, let's look at all the other things that go along with berberine, right? We're not pulling just the berberine out 9 times out of 10. There are other constituents that go along with it, like, vitamins and minerals and all of these synergistic players. I think of it, a good analogy would be like a basketball team. Now, you have the all-star, but you'll have 4 other players on court. The all-star will never beat a team by himself or herself, right? Requires all the support of the team in order to be the winning team. And so what pharmaceuticals do is they're like, well, we just need the star player and that's all, and we can be effective. But what herbalists, naturopaths, some DOs, and some alternative medical physicians recognize is, no, we need the whole team to be effective. And that's the value of utilizing whole plant alkaloids and other aspects of a plant versus a synthetic derivative like a drug, like metformin. Also, you get a lot of side effects this way because the whole team is preventing the negative stuff from happening. Maybe the magnesium in the plant or in the herb, adding to berberine, is preventing the nausea, where this guy doesn't have that, right? It doesn't have the magnesium or the extra players to help prevent those negative side effects. So then we see side effects happening and then more drugs to address the side effects. And before you know it, you have what's called polypharmacy. So anyway, another tangent, but no, it's derived from a completely different plant. And it is a synthetic derivation of the active ingredient in that plant. Because French lilac is amazing for what it does. It's also known as goat's plant or goat's rue. But the problem is the whole plant isn't used in metformin, and that's why it's problematic, unfortunately.
Okay, that's really interesting. All right, question 3. In traditional Chinese medicine, berberine is used for heat clearing properties. True or false? So I'm not very familiar with Chinese traditional medicine, but you did say berberine revs up your metabolism, so I feel like heat could be involved. I'm gonna go true.
I really love that you got to the right answer. So yeah, the answer is true. Definitely. So traditional Chinese medicine. Yeah. Hey, you know what? Who cares if the logic is there or not? The end result was right. So that's all that matters. But in traditional Chinese medicine, we have different temperatures and we have different elements. You know, it's kind of hard to explain here during just a 1 hour, but essentially, if you have, you know, things like hyperthyroid, where your thyroid's working too fast and you're really anxious and you're jittery and you have diarrhea and you can't sleep. This is like kind of a heat issue, right? We're really too hot. We're moving too fast. It's too much yang, essentially, because yang is the heat, the masculine. Yin is the female. It's the feminine. It's the soft. It's the nurturing. It's the slow. So maybe if we have depression or we have constipation or we have hypothyroid, where everything is slow and low, we have too much yin, or it's a cold condition. We don't have enough movement. Everything is kind of concrete, right? And where hyperthyroid is too much movement, it's too much heat. And so that's where the yin and yang come into play, the hot, cold, feminine, masculine, opposites attract. It's like you want a balance of everything. Also dry and wet, because too dry, what do you get? Dry, flaky skin, dandruff. You get scanty urine. You have a dry tongue. It's like you can't drink enough water. Or too damp and you're thick, you're sticky. Think of a swamp. That's where obese people tend to have damp heat, right? They're just, the damp, the swelling, the edema, the inflammation, that's known as damp heat. And berberine in an alkaloid is known as a bitter herb, and bitter dries stuff. So if we're damp and sticky and hot and bitter stuff cools and dries, right? If we're a swamp, and we want to cool the swamp down and make it dry and more arid, berberine is perfect for that. So that was just a quick little synopsis or example. But yes, the short answer is yes. Berberine absolutely clears damp heat in Chinese medicine.
I feel like you just gave us a crash course in Chinese medicine. That was so cool.
Yeah.
And I love it. I started thinking about Shrek.
Yeah.
All right, so right, because that DVD, my car plays DVDs in the backseat. My girls have Shrek on a lot, so
it's like always on the background. Yeah.
Yeah, Barbie, a fairy tale, something. What is it? Fashion fairy tale. That's what's on right now. We're on repeat on that one, but it's really cute. It's cute. All right, so let's get back to our Barberry species were used to dye wool, leather, and wood. True or false? Ooh, gosh. It's got that beautiful bright yellow. I'm gonna go true.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Anybody who's ever worked with turmeric and stained the counter or stained your hands, you know that it's a great dye, berberine, right? That alkaloid. So yes, absolutely. Traditionally, it has been used for thousands of years. And actually to this day, some woodworkers and furniture makers and things still use it to dye wood, because it's such a brilliant golden color that comes through better than any synthetic stain.
Oh, cool. All right, number 5, berberine is sweet in taste. True or false? I'm going false. Going with bitter.
Kind of gave it away. Yes. Preemptively, it's bitter. It's not sweet at all. So sweet adds to, think of when we eat, if you eat anything like dairy, which has lactose, which is a sugar, anytime you have some candy or chocolate, if you pay really close attention, if you haven't ever noticed this, this is a mini challenge, pay close attention, you might get a little more phlegmy. You might have to clear your throat. You might, your saliva gets a little thicker, a little stickier. That's because sweet things create dampness or that sticky inflammation kind of feeling, both in our mucous membranes and in our body. And most people, it's an excess of either eating too much sugar, too much salt, fat, greasy foods. They both kind of do the same thing. They just add to that kind of damp, inflamed, kind of swollen, sticky thickness. And so, yeah, again, another tangent, but those sweet and spicy and or fried kind of salty foods is what adds to the problem that berberine is going to address. So bitter does a good job of kind of neutralizing those things. So if you have a sweet tooth, berberine is going to be helpful, not only in lowering the sweet tooth because of insulin and the way it acts, but in Chinese medicine, energetically, it's going to balance that out for you and cancel it out, make you crave sweet less, which is cool.
Well, that's good. It's going to be part of my 90-day challenge. I always have a sweet tooth.
I love it.
All right. Berberine is very safe to take long term. True or false? I'm going to go true.
Yeah, you would be right. So studies right now, long-term studies, have shown no negative side effects at the 2 and 3 year mark of taking berberine consistently, which means every day. Now, obviously, everybody and every biologic, you know, I say everybody and then everybody, right? Literally, our bodies are different. And so maybe you can only handle 6 to 12 months, you know, maybe you can handle 3 to 6 months. Just things to pay attention to: nausea, diarrhea, upset stomach or indigestion after taking it, and then either try to take it with a snack to help buffer. But if you're still noticing the effects, then, you know, maybe berberine isn't the alkaloid for you. Just respect your body's sensitivity. But by and large, I mean, almost every study I looked into, the vast majority of people, I think it was like 0.2% of people had negative side effects at 6 months, 2 years, 3 years. So as far as we can tell at this point, it's really, really safe to take long term. No real considerable negative side effects, knock on wood.
Yes. All right, number 7. It's beneficial to take berberine along with your current diabetes medications for better results. True or false? All right, well, you kind of mentioned something about if you take two things that do the same thing, it could be a bad thing. So I'm going to say false, or to consult your doctor, false.
Consult your doctor. Consult your doctor, false. So I like that. Yeah, so potentiation is a thing. If you're taking something to lower blood sugar and then you take another thing to lower blood sugar, it's almost like taking 2 doses of something. It's going to work a little too well, and we don't need anyone to have hypoglycemic shock or where the brain and the nervous system stops working because we have no more sugar in the body. I will say, though, on very low doses, which again, you have to talk to your doctor. Please do not take this as medical advice. Disclaimer. But there were some studies that showed that not a normal dose of metformin and a normal dose of berberine, not that, but if you took a smaller dose of metformin and a smaller dose of berberine together, they worked synergistically, meaning they helped each other work a little bit more efficiently. But usually in most cases, because of the effects and impact on the liver, you kind of do want to have to choose one or the other. But that's why you want to consult your doctor for sure. So yeah, good answer.
I like it. All right, number 8. Some studies have shown that berberine may help with depression. True or false? So mood activation. Let's go with true.
So right now, I will say I could not find a lot of extensive human studies. Doesn't mean they're not out there, but in animal studies, it's very, very promising. So when berberine was administered to mice, the serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine all increased by 30 to 50%, which who doesn't want 50% more dopamine to feel rewarded and excited and inspired, or, you know, 47% of serotonin to feel cozy and safe and, you know, not emotionally eat or stress eat, which when we have good serotonin, we don't do things like that. So yeah, in mice and animal studies, it looks very, very promising. So the next step is going to be more in-depth human studies. But then, you know, we haven't studied the data, but the subjects in the A1C, blood sugar, bad cholesterol study I talked about way before, just passively losing weight, that study, people definitely reported an increase in mood, better sleep, and all that good stuff. It wasn't measured, so it's not data. It's what's known as subjective, just them saying, yeah, I feel better. What does that really mean, in terms of data? But if you feel better, you feel better. Right? So it does look really, really promising. And I'm excited about that because mental health is a real challenge. And so when we can find things that don't have side effects that can address the issue directly, it's always beneficial. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Okay, number 9. We have 10 questions. Berberine is a powerful antioxidant. True or false? Ooh, antioxidant. We'll go true.
Yes. Highly antioxidant, highly anti-inflammatory. And that's, part of its superpower, why it can do what it does.
That's great. All right, and number 10, berberine acts as a prebiotic in the gut. True or false? Okay, prebiotic. Sure. True.
Sure. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. So most prebiotics are known as fiber or fiber-containing plants. But berberine is an alkaloid. And so, we were curious what was going on there. But yeah, it has actually been shown that this alkaloid can feed beneficial or known as commensal bacteria in the gut and help with probiotics, the balance of probiotics. So that's really awesome too. I mean, again, more and more stuff kept coming up as I was looking into more and more studies. And I just got so excited. I'm like, it does everything. How the heck?
It does. Like, if you don't have this in your cart right now, put it in there. Like, my God, everything. Like, there's not, if anything, like, just for the antioxidants, like, it's like, what don't you want? I guess if you don't, you're like, don't want to lose weight or something, then maybe you don't need this one. But so awesome. Okay, so I hope you guys are all enjoying our show. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat because we have Dr. Jacquie. She's a doctor of naturopathic medicine and she can answer your questions. Remember to hit the follow button. That would be great. And meanwhile, I want to share a story with you guys. If you're wondering what the little charms are on these supplements, these are called the Middle World Whisper. And they're just a handmade charm with a positive message, thought, or affirmation. Every single time you buy a supplement, you get a different whisper. So the one on my Berberine says, any exercise is better than no exercise, which I love that. And I don't know if you ever can notice, but if it ever looks like I'm moving, I have a desk elliptical and I pedal it during our lives. But I try to keep my shoulders really straight so that you guys can't tell. But I'm always trying to do a little exercise while I sit here. So these were inspired, the whispers were inspired from the founder's visit to the site of the Asclepian Temple in Turkey. And there is a tunnel in the ruins that's still there. This tunnel was used by the practitioners and they would whisper positive affirmations and mantras to the patients as they slowly walked through the tunnel. And so that's how she got the idea for the Middle World Whisper. And it's just a really cool way to have that intersection of emotional and physical healing. And especially that's needed nowadays where we just have so much going on in the world. And sometimes we don't even realize that what we're feeling, like thoughts of anger or grief or worry or stress, can cause actual physical processes in our body. So chronic stress has been shown to be linked with increased risk of heart attack and stroke. And depression has been linked to diabetes and a few other illnesses. So Dr. Jacquie, since we're talking about berberine today and its benefit for cardiovascular health, I would love to spend just a few moments on what kind of techniques that don't involve any substances yet can be used to signal our body and mind to relax and just get back to balance.
I love that. So I think it's intercultural. I mean, across the world, breathwork has been studied in so much depth. And again, just like traditional Chinese medicine and use of herbs, it was what's called esoteric or trial and error before. And now we know that science is backing it. So for instance, in Japanese culture, taking 6 long, deep breaths over 30 seconds. There was a study done with 20,000 people and 98% of them lowered their systolic blood pressure in 30 seconds simply by taking long, deep breaths, full, complete inhales and full, complete exhales. In the yogic tradition or Indian culture, Hindu culture, there's something called Vriti. It's VRI, so Vri, yeah, Vriti, which just means same, or equal. And so what we're doing is we're inhaling to a certain count. Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 6, maybe it's 8. You hold at the top of the inhale for the exact same amount of time. You exhale controlled at the exact same amount of time, and then you hold at the end of your exhale for that same amount of time. So it could be 4, 4, 4, and 4, all 6s, all 8s, whatever your capacity is. Doing that for about 2 to 3 minutes, again, time after time, has been shown to lower blood pressure and heart rate. And then last but not least, in our Western culture, we have studied 4-7-8 breathing, which is inhaling to 4, holding to 7, exhaling to 8. And doing that 10 to 12 times also has been shown in just that few minutes to lower blood pressure, pulse rate. So if you suffer from anxiety, which can increase pulse and blood pressure, if you have, panic disorder, if you have high blood pressure for any reason, if you just feel really stressed out, or you had kind of a moment or a wave of, adrenaline or cortisol, stress at work, in a relationship, in traffic, let's say, really taking just 30 seconds to 3 minutes to do any of those breath techniques will significantly lower your blood pressure, not only in that moment, but the more often you do it, just like any skill building, the more long-term the benefit will be. And so you can actually lower your blood pressure by 10 to 20 points, both, top and bottom number, diastole and systole, just by breathing alone, which is absolutely fantastic. So, outside of supplements, foods, anything like that, breath work all the way. Breath work is one of the most underutilized techniques, I would say, in just general health across the board, not just blood pressure, mental health, physical health. The body always remembers. Our mind wants to move on. Oh, I had a car accident last week. I'm fine. I can do it. Oh, I had COVID for 10 days and I felt like absolute death. Oh, but it's day 11, so I have stuff to do. I got to go. It's like our mind wants to jump to the next thing, but our body takes 5 to 10 times longer to process certain things. And so being respectful of that process, and breath work is a great way to help that transitional state, help our body process. Again, it's like going under the tree and shaking, right? We've talked about that. Breath work is a great way to help induce the shaking, if you will. So yeah, breath techniques to me for blood pressure, if you have problems with blood pressure, is going to be the greatest, and it's free. You can do it anytime, anywhere, no matter what, all the time. And it's absolutely free. So I, challenge you to try it and let me know, report back what your experience are. If, you're out there listening and you're looking for free, easy techniques to help with your blood pressure. Because it's helped me avoid a lot of panic attacks, or cut down. I, used to, and still sometimes do have, anxiety. And so it can either prevent that from happening, or once it's happened, it can help shorten the duration, right? Where I can bounce back in minutes or an hour instead of hours, days, or weeks. So I highly recommend breath work for all of those reasons, for sure.
Yeah, so important. I know the Navy SEALs use the 4-4-4, like the box method.
Yep.
Which is used too, where you just like breathe for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold, and just kind of repeat.
So effective. Yeah. Yes, it's so effective. We should all do it.
And then if you wear an Apple Watch, it tells you sometimes to take a breath. I think when you're like, haven't taken a big one in a while, mine will tell me all the time. So clearly I need to work on my breath work. But anything you can do to remind yourself is good. So yeah.
I agree. Totally agree.
All right, well, let's talk about some trigger points used in acupressure, because that's another free thing. Acupuncture. So which ones are connected with metabolism and weight loss?
So again, we have to remember when we're talking about Chinese medicine here, everyone, we really are breaking free of the conventional method of cause and effect. We're opening ourselves up to possibility of the new way of thinking, where yin and yang, masculine, feminine, hot, cold, dry, damp, all of these things come into play, and it's more about balance. So I really want, those of you who are interested in acupressure, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, to kind of keep that in mind. It's a very different way of thinking. And so some of these points basically, essentially, they're all intended to clear damp heat, dampness, just heat, or the combination of damp heat. So one of the most effective is going to be, it's called Governing Vessel, or GV26, and it's right here on your philtrum, which is that little kind of triangle between the, this area of your nose, the bottom of your nose, and the top kind of Cupid's bow of your lip. So with acupressure, and again, please talk to your doctor. I'm going to show you guys this stuff, but some of it could be contraindicated: pregnancy, breastfeeding, people who have a lot of potential other issues going on. Please talk to your doctor. Please talk to a health professional. I'm going to show you guys at home, but this is not akin to medical treatment, so please don't take it that way. I just have to disclaim it for liability reasons, but I'm happy to walk you through a couple of points you can look into on your own. So we have Governing Vessel 26, and with acupressure, you want to press firmly for about 20 to 30 seconds. And I'm watching the clock. We're at 7. Let's all do it together. 13, 14. And we can release. And then we release for about 10. And then we're going to do it again. And you just do cycles of that, okay, for 3 to 5 minutes on all of the points that I'm about to share with you. So we have, that's Governing Vessel 26. And then we have, it's called Conception Vessel 12 is the point. So there's always a meridian related to a vessel or an organ, and then a number, okay? And then they fall down very specific lines, let's say, of the body. Okay, so the next one is going to be known as CV12, and it's about 4 inches above the navel, or right below what's called your xiphoid process. It's at the bottom of the sternum. It's, you skip right when you feel that bony prominence, the end of your sternum or your breastbone, about an inch lower, maybe 2 inches lower, right there. And again, we're going to press. If it's tender, chances are you probably need this. You want to avoid that little bony prominence at the bottom, because at the bottom you have your whole sternum here, and then you have the little xiphoid process. It's right below that guy. Or if your navel's here, it's about 4 inches up. Okay, and again, you're going to press, hold, release, give it a second, press, hold, release. Okay, so those are 2 really big ones. Another one is going to be what's called large intestine 11. It's very, very big for removing heat from the body. If you have headaches, if you have night sweats, if you have hyperthyroid, if you have heat related conditions, this could potentially, again, I say potential, disclaimer, potentially help. So you want to bend your elbow, find the crease of the elbow on the outside, and then press in that divot. So relax the elbow, and it just, mine's a little tender. That's how you can kind of tell that you might have some heat buildup. And then you press, press, press. And you want to press until it's noticeable. It's a nice firm pressure. You're not trying to kill, the tissue in the area, but you're also not, it's not a gentle press. It's kind of a middle of the road pressure. So that's LI 11. And then large intestine, because it follows the meridian line, large intestine 4 is right here in this groove. So those of you who have ever had a headache and you've gone to acupressure or acupuncturist and they're like, this is a great headache point. Again, it clears heat. And as heat rises in our body, the idea is it gets accumulated in our head and causes headaches, at least in Chinese medicine. Again, so, right here, kind of where the thumb and the pointer, if you were to draw a line and find where they kind of would connect, right in that juicy kind of part of the hand is where mine's tender. You want to press there. And then there are 2 more on the leg. So everybody now, if you can, find the inner ankle bone. It's called your malleolus, the little thing that pops out, the bony prominence on the inside, not the outer, but the inner. Okay, and I want you to put your fingers like this. The bony prominence is going to be here on your ankle, and you're going to go up your shin this many. And then right on the other side, you're going to press that point. Okay, I guess I can kind of lift my foot up. Let's do some yoga, everyone. And I am wearing shorts, so it'll help. But the inner bone here, you're going to go up 4 fingers, find that point, and press. Woo! And mine is tender today. So spleen, this is spleen 6, everyone. And spleen 6 is known as what's called a convergent point. It's where more than one meridian crosses. It's like an intersection in a highway, right? It's not just one direct road. It's where 3 stop signs come together: kidney, liver, spleen. And in Chinese medicine, everyone, each organ system represents a feeling or an emotion. Spleen is worry, liver is anger, and kidney is fear. If you're constantly afraid of the future, problems happening, feeling secure, you're worried about this, you're worried about that, it makes you frustrated, annoyed, why can't I control everything? Why isn't everything working out the way I want it to all the time? Chances are your spleen 6 needs a little bit of love. So this is the point for you. Not just for weight and metabolism, because again, dampness, all that stuff when we're talking about temperature, liver causes heat, spleen causes dampness. So when we're hot-headed, we're real angry, liver is the house of anger, everyone. So a damp heat, right, makes sense. And dampness is the spleen. Spleen is worry and what's going to happen. And I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm just going to eat these donuts, but I'm going to have not just one, I'm going to have 12. And so we overeat sugar when we're worried a lot of times, right? Because sugar creates dopamine and that sense of reward and pleasure seeking because we're trying to quell the worry naturally. So damp, spleen, worry, sugar; heat, liver, hot, anger combined usually is the perfect combination to screw with our metabolism, make us really use calories very inefficiently. So the few points that I gave you today, here, and spleen 6. And then last but not least, we have stomach 36. Go on the outside of your knee, everyone, right around here in this little divot, not like the bony part of the knee, kind of go into that soft little crevice. That's going to be stomach 36. And stomach 36 also clears heat. So those are a handful of acupressure points. There's a ton more, but those are the big ones that kind of came to mind as soon as you asked. So hopefully you all find value in that. And if you do, just doing acupressure on your own, I highly recommend looking into getting regular acupressure, acupuncture for yourself. It changed my life as soon as I found it. I'm a huge advocate of it. Whether or not you believe in Chinese medicine, you don't have to. You can kind of let the needles and the pressure points work for themselves. Chinese culture has been using it 10,000 plus years. So if it works for them for that long, chances are there's a little something to it. But hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, super helpful. That was a super cool demo. I'm still pushing on my knee right now. I love it. So good. I need to get acupuncture. I have not done that in a really long time. So
it's one of my favorite things to do.
Is it? Do you
Yes.
meditate? Do you put earbuds in and meditate while you're doing it, or do you just go in there with nothing and just lay?
I ask the patient, do you want music? Do you want rainstorm? Do you want guided meditation? Would you prefer nothing at all? Some people really want to meditate in their own silence. So I really try to meet the patient where they're at. But 9 times out of 10, I can honestly say it's some sort of guided meditation. It's kind of relaxing, getting rid of anxiety, slowing down the mind. Some people just want to take a 30-minute nap. They're like, I don't sleep well, and this is the only place I sleep well. So we do a sleep meditation or something. So it really just depends on you and what you need at the time.
Cool. Gosh, I wish you lived closer to me. That'd be so cool to have. All right. Well, I hope everyone's enjoying our natural wellness show today. If you haven't hit the follow button, go ahead and do that now. It's a great way for us all to just stay connected on Amazon Live. You can also follow Middle World Herbs on social media. We're on all the platforms there. And Dr. Jacquie, as you mentioned, among many benefits of berberine, some of the best researched ones are around heart and cardiovascular health, blood sugar regulation, weight management. So I'd love to understand a little better about the biological processes related to those 3 aspects of health, which berberine has an amazing influence on.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, is there anything in particular you want to start with, or just any and all?
Yeah, I do have something I want to start with. Let's focus for a moment on heart and cardiovascular issues. Thank you for even prompting that. I would not have seen that. Where did those come from?
Okay, so cardiovascular issues, we all kind of have been warned, but eating lots of greasy foods, high sugar foods, foods that are just going to cause our bad cholesterol to go up. Bad cholesterol causes cardiovascular plaques, and that leads to heart attack, stroke, all that stuff. So avoid all that. So unhealthy diet's a huge risk factor. Smoking cigarettes, huge risk factor. Prevents proper dilation and constriction of vessels. And then alcohol, the same, as tobacco or cigarette smoking. And then, of course, lack of physical activity. So if we don't move it, we lose it. It's real, everyone. It's not a punishment to say eat right and exercise, right? We're not trying as physicians to punish you. We're trying to help you live longer, higher quality life. So what, aerobic exercise does is help the vessels expand and contract and expand and contract. And again, if your body doesn't use it, you lose it. So let's say you just stay stagnant for decades and decades and decades, and you build plaque and plaque and plaque. And then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I want to go back to the gym. And you just hit it really hard like you were in high school again, and you start expanding and contracting those vessels. Well, what's going to shake loose is those plaques. And a lot of times people can suffer heart attack, stroke, or pulmonary embolism from going 100% sedentary to jumping right into really hard, intense working out. So even just walking has been proven to help prevent cardiovascular risk or cardiovascular disease risk. So definitely, move your body, eat well, and try to keep smoking and drinking to a minimum if you can.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're pretty much out of time. We'll have to do part 2 tomorrow, or another time with Berberine, and we'll get into our banana leaf too, because we didn't have time for that one.
Banana leaf is huge. Sorry, it's just, I just get so excited.
I bellowed out from the acupressure because I was like so calm right after that, which was great. So, but yeah, and then I looked over and I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost time to wrap. So let's wrap up with just 3 good takeaways that you want people to know about Berberine, and we'll pick back up on this topic.
Okay, yes, I would love that. Okay, so 3 good things to know about Berberine. I mean, it's 3 superpowers to me. If you have family history of cardiovascular disease, if you have family history or even personal history of that, or high bad cholesterol, which is the LDL cholesterol, if you have labs, check that out, see what your numbers are at. If you have prediabetes or diabetes, blood sugar dysregulation, you're having issues with your weight management, lots of thirst, insomnia, fever, chills, anything like that, you could have a blood sugar issue. So if you suffer from any of these 3, you or anyone you love, please look into Berberine. Again, there is no cure-all, but if there were something that's going to check a ton of boxes in the plant health world or the herbal world, it's going to be Berberine. So use nature, right? Nature is thy medicine for sure. Out with the bad, in with the good, and you're worth it. Just please remember you're worth it.
Yes, I love that. And we were talking about breathwork earlier. Eva said that she did like a test of before and after doing breathwork and using her blood pressure monitor, and it went about 10 points different, and 5 points in her diastolic one. So
it's so powerful.
Totally works.
Just from breathing, which we do did you guys know? Fun fact before we go, breathing is the only body system that we can do unintentionally and intentionally. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
You can't control your heartbeat. You can't directly tell your heart, hey, slow down or speed up. What you do is you passively or indirectly affect heart through breath work. Right? Your intention and attention is, breath is the only thing that autonomically will happen, or automatically, but intentionally happen as well. Everything else is either one or the other. We can't say, hey, metabolism, ready, increase, right? There's nothing we can do to increase certain autonomic things, or like body temperature, just sit here, like you can run obviously, or put on sweatshirt or something like that to increase your core temp, but like you can't just concentrate enough and then have it happen, right? Breath work is the only thing that's both, which I think is really powerful.
That is so powerful. Yes, I know. I need to remember that. Anytime I've ever gone to like, I feel like a doctor appointment, I'm always rushing to get there, and like, I never take a deep breath before. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to remember to do some breath work before I go in. And yeah,
It's a big difference.
Make a huge difference, probably. I'll be like,
Yeah.
wow, what have you changed? Like breathing.
Breathing.
I also always like, I just downed like 16 ounces of cold brew coffee. Is that going to change anything?
Yes.
Like,
I cannot tell you how many patients do that. They rush to the office stressed out. They're running late. They had only coffee for breakfast, and they want the first appointment of the day to avoid the wait list,
Yes.
you know, to avoid wait time. And we take their blood pressure, and it's like, is it normally this high? They're like, oh no, I have great blood pressure. I'm like, are you sure about that? Let's measure it in about 20 minutes after you've calmed down. And it usually barely changes, if at all, right? It's just, we do things that, and that's that false, it's called false Shen in Chinese medicine, where we think we're alert and alive and awake when we're not. We're just jacking up our systems, you know, to try and give that false sense of energy. So yeah, breath work will give you genuine energy, normalize your vitals, and you'll feel so much better doing it.
that's awesome. Yes, Abby says practices intentional breathing every day. Good job. That's great. Yeah, we all need to be intentional about it. That's really cool. All right, well, that's a perfect place to end. So we will see you guys back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you didn't grab your bottle, 20% off right now. Grab it. Do the 90-day challenge with me. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Hear the whispers from within, balance to restore, ailings to relieve. Feel the nature keeping us, nature healing us, flowers, leaves, and roots within. Hear the mind calming you, soothing you, love and kindness inside out. Let the herbs from middle world heal. Welcome wellness, welcome wellness. It's revealed herbs, middle world herb.